Hello, everybody. This is Greg Stewart with Criminal Psychology Files. Today, we're going to discuss what is known as the Gainesville Ripper, and we're going to talk about the shadow killer of the Gainesville Ripper. And why do I call him the shadow killer? Because this man hunted his prey when you were sleeping in the shadows. And his name is Danny Rowling. And you're going to find that this person terrorized a whole town by killing five innocent people in Gainesville and three in Louisiana. And this is that story in reference to a monster who lived in the shadows by the name of Danny Rowling and the shadow killer of Gainesville, the Gainesville Ripper. So before we get started with this story, please subscribe, like, share, and comment in reference to this story and future stories to come. It really helps a lot with this podcast growth, and I do appreciate and thank you. Once again, my name is Greg Stewart for Criminal Psychology Files, and now let's begin the story. Welcome. Welcome to Shadows of Gainesville, where we explore the darkest corners of true crime. Today's episode, it takes us to Florida in the summer of 1990, a time when fear gripped a college town and a killer lurked in the shadows. Today's story is of Danny Rowling, the Gainesville Ripper. Today we're going to investigate Danny Rowling's. We're going to find out when he was alive, how he ticked. What caused this man to do one of the most horrible crimes in Gainesville, Florida history? What makes a person premeditate and say, today is the day that people are going to hear me? Because that's exactly what it is. I am going to be heard so loud that you will not forget me. And you may ask yourself, well, why would someone do that? Low self-esteem is at the top of the chart. And with that, I want to be valued, or a narcissistic personality disorder in reference to, I am so special, I am so powerful that I will be heard no matter what I do and when I do it. And all of these things play that role. And that's exactly what happened here with the man known as the Gainesville Ripper, Danny Harold Rowling, who was born on May 26th, the year 1954 in Shreveport, Louisiana. From the start of his life, he had trauma from his father. He just could not fit in. James Rowling, who was a military man, actually, he was in the Korean War. He was a vet there. And then he became a police officer because that's what he knew best, was to control hectic environments as he did in the war. So he knew and felt, being a police officer after being in the Korean War, well, this may be my calling. But unfortunately, his son never measured up to him. Danny was told from his father on numerous occasions, I don't want you. You're not wanted. And he beat the hell out of him on a regular basis. He beat anything that he enjoyed, from his dog to, even if he was breathing a certain way, I don't like the way you're breathing. And then he would hit him and spank him and say, stop that crying, or otherwise I'll give you something to cry for, Danny. This was the household of Danny Harold Rowling. Now, his mother, Claudia, she tried to leave this man on multiple times, but she always returned. Because why do people return to violent situations again? Low self-esteem. His mother had low self-esteem, and she was also afraid that if I do leave and I don't come back, or I act a certain way, he might come after me. This man is a police officer. He has contacts. I'll have to stay, and I'll have to be the good wife. And that's what she was. So she would turn the other cheek, so to speak. And so Danny's childhood was a cocktail of violence. He was neglected and he was emotionally tormented. And so you could imagine how this would flow into his teenage years. And he spiraled for connection. He would get arrested for so many things, from watching people, looking for people who were doing sexual acts, whether it was in their cars and parks or break into people's homes. And this was as a teenager. So you can already see that the blueprint was already getting set up. And then you had his theft, because he had to support his habits, whether it was adult magazines to little shops that he can go and entertain himself. And all this erratic behavior continued and continued. I mean, the man was so asphyxiated on his fantasy life that he couldn't even hold a job, couldn't form any stable relationships on top of it. Even if someone said, "Well, you're attractive, I want to have a connection," he would do the unthinkable. He would be into his little fetishes, and he would want them to act a certain way or perform a certain way. And this was who Danny Rolling is at that time and was. So in 1989, Danny Rolling committed a triple homicide in Shreveport, Louisiana. He murdered a 24-year-old woman by the name of Julie Grissom. He also murdered her nephew Sean and her father Tom. The killings were brutal, but they didn't make national headlines. And Danny, he just vanished. He was like, "You're not going to catch me. No way in hell are you going to find me." And because it wasn't networked in the system, Danny was able to just cross the border from state to state and make his way into Gainesville, Florida. And by August 1990, as he drifted into Gainesville, this wonderful college town, home of the University of Florida Gators, where students were getting ready to connect for their fall semester. In fact, they've already begun it at that time. And so Danny knew this, and he seen the potential of naive children, meaning naive in a way that they felt safe, they felt comfortable, they felt like they were at home, which is the way they should be in a college town amongst their peers. And Danny would take advantage of this innocence, if you will, because they just felt safe. I'm building my future. I'm going to be someone. I'm going to make relationships that will last a lifetime. But this excited Danny. And he had other plans that would cause him, in his mind, significance, stability, meaning I will never be forgotten. I will be certain in certain people's life, maybe even all the world's life. I will have variety because the way I can do things, this will always give me the drama in my life that excites me, that I need. So these were the thoughts that he had in his mind. And so he would take advantage of this. He would take advantage of this, and he would start to set up what he was going to do. And how did he structure this? Danny would create songs in reference to what he was about to perform, the killings that he was about to do. He literally would state, and you would think you would hear in his music, some areas of I shouldn't be or what I'm about to do, but it didn't stop him because his fantasy, his fetish took over. The excitement of getting back at any and everyone from daddy and mommy by sticking this in the nose of law enforcement, to the mother who was never there by taking his violence out on young girls, to the world because you helped create the person that I see in the mirror every day. So Danny, on August 24th, 1990, broke into the apartment of Sonja Larson and Christina Powell, two freshmen. And they had an upstairs and they had a downstairs. And so Danny would step upstairs and very quietly, he would sneak into the room of Sonja and he placed his hand up her mouth. She started now. Her eyes were so wide in the dark where you could only see the street lights coming through the window. She's sleeping and did not expect this, in a heavy, deep sleep. And of course, downstairs was Christina Powell's room. So she's not aware of what's taking place above. And so unfortunately, Danny, he rapes, he stabs, and he poses Sonja. And he's still excited because prior to this, Danny would stalk. He would stalk his victims. He knew exactly who and whom he was going for. And so it excited him because now I did this. And remember, this was not unfamiliar territory because he was already wanted for a triple homicide in Shreveport, Louisiana. So he's already had made his mind to where I'm powerful now. In his mind, he actually thought he got away with it, even though he escaped before they could discover that it was him. But they knew it was him, but there wasn't no wide network to look for him in other states. So here he is. And he goes downstairs. He does the exact same thing to Christina Powell. And he poses them. It was very important for him to pose them, for the shock effect to send through. And everybody that would report it, the journalists, at least if they didn't see it, they would read about it. But more so, as if he's giving the middle finger to his father, like looked at, because law enforcement would be the first to see this. And this was his way of saying, ha, in your face. How do you like me now, Mr. Good Guy? So he didn't wait. He didn't wait to do this again because he was so excited from what he did the day before that he was ready already to do it again. And remember, he makes these little recordings and he gets himself prepped. And you wonder, well, where did he stay? He made a little like fort in the woods. And he would stay there and he would have this little battery tape recorder. Not a cell phone like today. He would have a battery tape recorder. And this is what he would, in the woods, in the darkness, in the moonlight, creepy as hell. This is where he would make his little tapes. And so the next day, he struck again. This time it was a records clerk by the name of Christa Hoyt, an 18-year-old records clerk who was home alone. Danny, master of breaking into people's homes, did exactly the same thing. He raped, he murdered her. And then he did the next level. I have to take it up a notch, he figured. And I noticed a whole bunch of shelves where they keep little pictures and little fixtures and things of that nature. So he decided to decapitate her. And he placed her head on a shelf, facing her body as if she was looking at her body on the sofa. And the shelf also not only showed her other half of her body, unfortunately, facing as if she's looking at it, but it also would be the first thing you would see if you were to open the door. If you were to open the door, you would witness the body, law enforcement, which is exactly what happened. And then even the detective said, in all of my years, and I've seen some pretty gruesome things, I've never seen the macabre, the horror of what this killer had tried to put in our heads. So he was already succeeding in not only taking a victim, but making ones living through life, from these officers to the families that would have to find out about this monster. And it didn't stop there. So you had August 24th. You had Sonja Larson and Christina Powell. You had August 25th, Christa Hoyt. And now you have August 27th. And again, people do things in patterns. So he recorded, he stalked, and he set his eyes on Tracy Paulus and Manny Taboada. Now, the guess is that Manny just happened to be the roommate, because up until this point, he was mostly killing the women. But if you look at Louisiana, he did do some killing in reference to a nephew of Julie and her father. So fighting men and killing men was not unfamiliar with Danny. And so on August 27th, both 23 years of age, Tracy and Manny, they're going to sleep for the night as well, or at least in their rooms. But it was late. And so at this point, he has to take out the bigger person first. He has to, so he can do his thing to Tracy Paulus. So Manny's resting in his bed. He's not even thinking, but boom, he hears some shuffling ears. Before he knows it, he sees a man coming in with him. And you can see by the marks on Manny, who was a very strong, big guy. He was a football player. I believe he was 6'3", well over 200 pounds. And because of the physical position of laying on his bed, he really couldn't put the fight up that if he had the opportunity standing face to face. And that's what Danny wanted, because he knew, looking at this guy, I have to use surprise in order to overpower this person. And that's exactly what he did. And unfortunately, he killed Manny. Now, prior to that, just briefly, Tracy is yelling, "Is everything all right?" She hears something that sounds like there's a fight in the other room. And then it stops. And here comes Danny. He's been worked. He's been physically exhausted from the fight that Manny put up. But I have to finish my mission. And so Tracy goes, "Oh my gosh, did you kill Manny?" He was like, "Yes, I did." "So you're the guy that everybody's talking about. You're the Gainesville Ripper." "Yes, I am." It was almost as if he was proud. And at this point, he followed the same rituals of the rape, the stab, and the posing. Only this time he didn't really pose. According to the records, he would just basically leave the bodies, because he was probably so exhausted after Manny that he said it was almost as if he was cleaning up at least where Tracy was. There was like a sheet or something under the hip, and I think one under her head, but it was not the same staging because of the fight that Manny put him through to try to save himself as well as Tracy. So you have 5 students, 4 women, 1 man, all young, all brutally murdered. And students would start to flee the school. Parents demanded answers. They were like, "This is just, we don't want our children." This is now 3 to 4 days of killings where our children are supposed to be safe, where we even once went to school as alum, and now this is happening. And so things became a little quieter, but it wasn't until finally an arrest was made. But not the arrest that you would think, like we caught the murderer. No. Danny Rolling was arrested in Ocala, Florida, a couple hours down the road for armed robbery. See, he had to have some cash to eat, and he didn't have any. He didn't rob these people. He just fulfilled this fantasy. And so there he is in jail, and he began writing some more songs and poems. And he's got all this energy because everything is still rather fresh. Everything is still rather fresh. And he wants to tell about it. Remember, the whole thing about Danny was that he was a very insecure man, very self-conscious because of his relationship with his family. I was never good enough. And now I'm significant. I am known. Look, they even given me a name, the Gainesville Ripper. So he had all of this built up that he confessed to one of his cellmates. And the cellmate said, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody on the down low. See that guy in there? The guy that was arrested for armed robbery? He just shared some wild stuff with me. I'm actually afraid to be even in the cell with him. If you can prove this, can you get me away from this guy and out of the cell? Just get him out of here." But he confessed that he is the Gainesville Ripper. And they didn't have a suspect at this point. They didn't even put together at this point the Shreveport killings. And so they grabbed him. And eventually evidence did link those murders in Gainesville to him. And then once he knew they had him, he goes, "Hey, I have to confess, by the way, haha, you know those killings in Louisiana and Shreveport? By the way, that's where I'm from." And that was me, by the way. And I'm surprised my father didn't come forward, but I attempted to kill him at one point too. So that was me, by the way. I just want you guys to know. So again, narcissist, or just someone that had to be heard, looked to be heard, and was going to be heard. So it was easy to put all of the evidence together because he admitted to it, and he had things and tapes, and then they were also able to pinpoint through TVs and not TVs, but cameras, I should say, and monitors in reference to certain stores that they could see prior to each killing that he was stalking these people. He knew them better than they knew themselves. He knew what they were doing, when they would go to class, when they would be back, and then he would use stealth to kill them. And in 1994, Danny Rolling was sentenced to death. He spent over a decade on death row, and again, didn't faze him. He was doing everything, writing his music, reliving the fantasy, painting and writing, and even marrying a true crime writer, as sick as that sounds. But should he have been given the painting, the ability to write and make his music, why should he have even had those freedoms? Thinking about it, just to relive the fantasy, because that's what he did over and over and over. And then someone was able to marry him to fulfill his other needs, a true crime writer, as sick as it is. And on October 25th of the year 2006, he was executed by lethal injection. A lot more calming, nice way to kill someone opposed to the monstrous acts that he did. And when you look at this and the legacy and the impact upon, what he has done, and he even admitted a lot of the killings that I did was based on a lot of the stories and movies that I've seen. I wondered if I could get away with it and that would work. Like one movie that really set in his head was the movie Scream. And he said, he was inspired by that movie. And it just helped him really connect on how he was going to do what he was going to do. And unfortunately for Gainesville, Florida, the scars remain. I mean, it's always going to be talked about. Hey, from year to year, time to time, people are going to speak about what he had did, what he had done, because people get curious about mystery or about things. And then you have tour areas. This is the wooded area where Danny Rolling was preparing his killing. These were the shops and the stores that he visited. That's the dorm and the apartments where each person lived. It's just like Jack the Ripper, you see. And when people really should be remembering the memorials, they should remember the dates and honor the students in both states, from Louisiana to Shreveport to Gainesville, Florida. It should be the victims like Sonja and Christina and Manny and Christa and Tracy that should be remembered. Their lives were cut short, and they're not able to live the lives that most of us are fortunate to. So I thank you for joining me and listening to The Shadows of Gainesville, the murders from a monster. And if this story moved you, please share it. Please like, share, and subscribe. And remember the victims. And write any comments in reference to red flags that you can also assist when it comes to the 6 human needs and how someone is using them where you believe could be something to hurt someone. If you're asking yourself, what are those 6 human needs again? Well, 6 human needs psychology is based on these 6 needs. Certainty, which equals stability. Variety, but variety in a way of not getting that favorite Christmas or birthday present, but variety in reference to how someone deals with adversity. What am I going to do today to create drama? And significance, which is everything that this person, this monster did. I'm going to be heard. I'm going to be valued. And most important, I'm going to be significant. And then connection. I'm going to connect to all these people. They're never going to forget me. Even when they kill me, they're never going to forget me. And if I could make you not forget me, then that's going to be the fifth human need, which is growth. Even against your will, I am growing within you. And the final human need, contribution. You're going to contribute by continuously keeping me alive, by talking about me. And I hate to be one, but I'm more of using this platform as a warning of what to look for and teach you the human needs. So if something had to come out for our poor victims, that's what's coming out from this podcast today. So again, thank you for joining me. And again, please share, like, and subscribe, and write in the comments. And until next time, this is Greg Stewart with Criminal Psychology Files. Have a great day or evening wherever you are.